Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing.
Welcome to the Watchmen for Nixon podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Garrett.
And we will be covering the final episode of The Watchmen, episode 9, See How They Fly. This was quite a conclusion, man. There were a lot of loose ends that we needed to have tied up by the end of this. And overall, I think they did a pretty good job. And I'm sure we'll get into this in further detail. But they still closed up a lot, I think. They left some things open-ended. They answered some things on PDpedia in a roundabout way, which I found to be kind of interesting. But what were your thoughts overall on this episode? Rounding out and concluding the Watchmen TV series.
I think majority of my thoughts are positive. I have a couple criticisms that I've had throughout the show itself that I feel like they still kind of dropped the ball on, which we'll get into. But overall, just to kind of keep my answer a little more concise here, I thought it was strong. Yeah. I thought that it answered a lot of questions. It even answered some questions I guess I didn't know to ask, specifically remaining to Lady True, as far as who her father is, right? Yeah. Never would have asked that.
Right.
I liked what they did with Regina King. I liked that we got some... just some characters like Red Scare and Pirate Jenny were in there, not forgotten. The fact that we got Looking Glass theory correct, he's under the hood.
Yep.
Points to me on that one.
Definitely.
And I think my overall favorite part of the episode, though, was the Adrian Veidt and Laurie Blake interaction. I want to talk to you, obviously, as we talk about this episode and as a whole, but obviously the show as a whole, at least this particular season. So overall, I thought it was good. I thought they tied up a lot of stuff. I think that they're correct in how Lindelof has said this was a beginning, a middle, and an end. He can satisfactorily end the show now. I think he's correct. He can. I hope he doesn't. But I do think if they were to come in tomorrow and say, you know what, this is great, we're going to leave it alone, I think that this was a successful season of television. And I think that they can hang their hat on it if they choose to end it today. How about you? What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially on that last part there, where if they choose to treat this as a standalone limited series, essentially, I do think that they made it very successful by doing that, by ending it kind of open-ended, but still with a sense of conclusion. The movie, honestly, that immediately sprung to mind was Inception.
Yep.
When I saw this ending, right? So it's a great way when handled properly, which I think this episode did. You can end on that kind of note and still have it feel satisfactory. So I really thought that was a strong way to end it. And yeah, great point about Veidt and his daughter being True. Wouldn't have even thought to bring that into the plot. Especially not in the last episode, but I actually think they made it relevant and handled that pretty well. It was a last little, not the only twist, but it was an additional twist that I think nobody saw coming. So that was pretty cool as well. But yeah, to try and make this succinct here, overall, I thought it was a pretty strong conclusion to overall what I think is a very strong series as well. So yeah. I very much enjoyed this finale.
Yeah, let's kind of break this down a little different. Instead of going necessarily scene by scene, sure. we can hit on some main points. But what I want to start with actually is the end of it. So you brought up Inception, and the ending of the show is Angela, who had just eaten the egg.
Yes.
Right, the yolk of the egg, which we can get to that in a little bit. And she goes to step on the water. I'm just curious, what were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so what I was really anticipating to happen here was that she would go back to the eggs. I kind of saw that coming. I'm like, it's going to be about the eggs. We've talked at length about the symbolism behind eggs in multiple episodes. So I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously we're going to circle back to the egg. I really thought that she was going to see the egg in the carton and smash the egg, because the idea of someone possessing the power of a god, I questioned if Angela would agree with someone's ability to do that. So I actually was wondering if she would smash the egg. Now, as it stands, where she ate the egg and has her foot hovering over the water, yeah, it's a good little teaser at the end there. But I thought they were going to swing a completely different direction on it.
So I was actually hoping that she would have just fallen right through the water and we would have seen that. Yeah. I was hoping, and the reason why I say that is I thought it would have been great for her character. Even though she clearly believes in Dr. Manhattan, she knows about his power. There's like an impatience to her.
Yes.
About Dr. Manhattan, right? Like I said, going back to the episode prior when he's standing on the pool and she goes, what the F? We don't have time for this. Like get your head out of your ass, right? Like there's an impatience to her, and I felt like there would have been a frustration to her to have her step out, fall, and realize he didn't transfer the power to the egg. And the reason why I said that as well is it's kind of to me it's a long shot for me to believe that when he said watch the eggs as he's baking and he pulls the eggs out, that was him transferring the power to the egg. Okay. I know that he was holding an egg, in the earlier part of that episode, the penultimate episode where he's talking about, and he eats the drink, drinks the egg himself. I get it. I'm just saying that particular egg, there's nothing that would point to he actually transferred powers to it.
Sure.
So I felt like that was a little bit of a, and again, it's an inception, right? Do you believe that he did transfer powers or not?
That's what
I'm going to vote that he didn't because we didn't obviously see that.
Sure. Sure. And with the ending as it does exist, I actually went the opposite way on that. So I'm glad we have a bit of an opposing viewpoint here. Reason why, though, is if they had not included this line of dialogue, I would agree with you. But the fact that Will, in the theater, prior to this scene, references the fact that Dr. Manhattan had mentioned the eggs to him. And that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs kind of deal. The fact that conversation happened leads me to believe that there probably is something special about the egg that she eats. So
here's my question then, and let's talk this through, and then we can go back. So tangent here. At what point do you think that he transferred his power?
I think it is in that scene that we see.
Okay.
And there's nothing, I guess, with Dr. Manhattan's powers, at least as we understand them, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to assume he could probably just have created an egg across the room in that carton that had contained his powers. I don't think he physically would have needed to have it in his hands and presented it. So yeah, I can totally buy it occurring in that particular scene.
My next question, and I don't know if I don't think they answered this, and I kind of feel like I would like this answer. Can Dr. Manhattan create multiple Dr. Manhattans? Or does Dr. Manhattan lose his power when he transfers it?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if he transferred the power to the egg, and I understand the concept can get tangled up here. I understand that he can be in multiple places at once, right?
Correct.
And all-knowing. However, I don't believe he can be in multiple places at once when he's in the lithium battery gel cell they built for him.
Correct.
So if that's the case, and his power had already been transferred to the egg, how can he touch the blood and disappear them to Adrian Veidt's hideout?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, and I'm not saying it doesn't say that he has to lose his power. I'm just curious if Dr. Manhattan can create other Dr. Manhattans. That's my question.
Sure. And you're right. We don't explicitly get an answer there in terms of if it would somehow drain his power like a true transference rather than simply creating a new one. I think it was intended to be that it's just creating another being with his power so that he would retain his, and then he's able to pass on the ability for someone else to kind of obtain that as well.
Okay.
But,
okay. Yeah. So let's just talk through the beginning here.
Sure.
So we see that, let's see here. Where do we want to begin? So can we just quickly also say how dumb it was that he got shot by that cannon again? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just take it to the mall here. So as he heads to the mall, or, basically what I really loved was Angela's torture scene of the guy, of the 7th Cavalry member. She's breaking his fingers, right? Gruesome.
Very much so. Well, it shows in the last episode, it reinforces how far some of these people are willing to go to get the answer.
Yeah.
The good guys that we're rooting for, how far they're willing to go. So
yeah. Well, actually, I apologize. Let's backtrack because that's not where it starts. It starts with Adrian.
It starts with Veidt.
With Veidt. And Veidt's recording his message to Robert Redford.
I didn't know if you'd wanted to save that till the end
Go
of it
ahead.
or not. So.
Well,
No, let's dive into it because you're right. It opens with Veidt for quite a long period of time.
Yeah,
as well
I like talking about Veidt at the end because he's his own story,
Right.
and I think there are things about it. But you're right. For this, it has impact on here specifically because of True. I'm also disappointed that we didn't get Robert Redford.
Yeah.
So unless they're going to do a second season, which they have not confirmed as far as I know, up to the point where we're recording this podcast, I have not read anything that they are doing a second season. Then I don't know what the point. I keep saying Robert Redford is president of the United States when we don't see him. So it makes me also believe there's a second season that Robert Redford will be a part of it. But again, it's just kind of a letdown that he didn't show up in the series.
Yeah, it was one of those things that, I don't know, just to expand it, make it seem like a livable world of some kind as part of their own world building that they thought to have him in there. But you're right, it doesn't end up having any real direct impact on the story necessarily.
No. So
anyway,
Veidt is recording his message, which I thought was great, especially when the guy like sneezes and he has to just he's very patient with them.
He is,
and it was really great. He's just like, okay, we'll cut from there, and he just like restarts, starts to record. But the story is really that Lady True's mother is a cleaning woman at this facility or his hideout, and she goes into his office and somehow knows his passwords, and supposedly Adrian Veidt does not believe in intercourse with women. It's a waste of his time, but yet he believes in masturbation and keeping his progeny, right? Mm-hmm. For legacy. Obviously, this entire show is based on legacy.
Exactly, yes.
So he obviously has got to store it into a refrigerator vault right behind the Alexander the Great painting, okay? And this was an interesting just series of events here where Lady True's mother basically replaces the sperm with lotion, okay, and then she injects it into herself, which I've already seen the face that she makes when it's injected is now memed already. Okay, so it's already
not be surprised by that.
No,
but yeah.
But and obviously, as soon as this was happening, to me, I thought this is. I kind of knew where they were going with this.
Yeah.
Did you know where they were going with this too?
At that point, I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're gonna do here. Once again, prior to this entire opening sequence, that thought had never occurred to me. But being where we're at now, as this opening begins to unfold, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see where they're kind of telegraphing that to go.
So let's just dive into that. What do you think of that as Lady True being Adrian Veidt's daughter?
I think the biggest part of that being a payoff in this episode, we shouldn't overlook the fact that it is teased when Veidt constructs the message out of the numerous dead cloned bodies of Crookshanks and Phillips, right?
Right.
So we can see it says "save me" and then a word that starts with the letter D, and a lot of people were thinking if that says Dr. Manhattan, but they clearly panned away for a reason, right? So this was really cool within the confines of this episode to see how that suddenly tied back to the previous one, where Veidt's sending a message to her, and the impact of him calling her daughter. So I think overall, to have this sudden reveal that they technically didn't need to include in this particular final episode, I think it really worked. It paid off. It made a previous scene that was kind of arbitrary, in terms of the final word there, right? With Veidt's scene on Jupiter, it turned that scene into so much more, I guess is my point. So,
correct.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that, though? This entire kind of subplot that they suddenly threw at us.
So, I guess in the basis of where her character ends up in this episode, it makes sense, right? The ultimate baddie turns out to be Lady True, and although I guess ultimate baddie, maybe not ultimate baddie. I mean, she does smoke the 7th Cavalry, but kind of in true Adrian Veidt fashion, she is the one that's pulling the strings behind everybody. Kind of like even she is essentially the smartest person alive. I guess I kind of like that she's his daughter. I kind of also wish she was just super smart on her own.
Sure.
I was kind of thinking to myself, it doesn't lessen her character to know that she's his daughter. I don't want to say it lessens her character. I feel like her character, though, could be even stronger had she not been Adrian Veidt's daughter.
Sure.
And she was masterfully pulling all these strings.
Agreed. I think an interesting part, too, which they kind of gloss over, and you have to remind yourself of how willing Veidt is to do this. Now, I understand he doesn't really know her at all, but he still knows that she's his daughter. And he, without any remorse or hesitation, by the end of this episode, finds a solution to stop her by killing her. And he's willing to this is
Yeah.
This is what needs to be done. Also, 5 square blocks is going to get destroyed by the time we do this. Click, go.
Yeah.
And it's a very Veidt thing to do, you know? So.
Yes. And like I said, I think that I don't want to say it weakens her character. I just feel like it could strengthen her character as far as a show that's definitely has a lot of strong female characters.
Right.
It makes her not as strong. Now, I loved her interaction when she's walking through the snow to his, what's his hideout called?
Oh gosh, I'd have to pull that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, not comic book reader. She knocks on his door a lot, and he opens the door, and I love it because he's just so cold. He's like, he realizes it's freezing outside.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, no visitors, no tourists, essentially, no, go away, and he's basically, she convinces him because she knows everything about him.
Yeah.
She knows, which is kind of odd. I don't know how she would know everything about him doing that.
Well, Beyond worked for him.
What's that?
Yeah. Like Beyond worked for him, so I'm assuming she would have
But I guess
passed on her knowledge.
That's true, because that was what they were doing when he was filming it during. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we don't know the exact timeline when Beyond would have passed. So
Right.
I think it's reasonable to assume that True would have grown up. Beyond would have shared, the truth about who her father was, and then here we are. So.
But she basically tries to convince him she can do what he could not do.
Right.
And has to be extremely insulting to Adrian Veidt, which it was. She basically tells him about the telescope or whatever, the rocket ship that's heading towards Europa.
Yep.
Okay, so he knows that back in his mind to be on the lookout for that. That it will be there in X amount of years.
Yeah. That's how they sync that timeline, which I think is really cool.
Yes. But basically, she just says that I can harness the power, but I need your money to do so. And I love the speech he gives about how his parents left him a ton of money, but he gave it all away because he wanted to achieve it on his own. And I feel like that's something that's again, as a show that is so strong with females, it makes her character a little bit less because she wasn't willing to take that route. She kind of wanted to go the easy path here, where Veidt seems like clearly a much more like built up by his own bootstraps. She essentially does build up, from my understanding. She doesn't take his money, correct?
He does not give that to her.
Exactly.
Correct. So she does end up
build
having to do what he did. Yeah.
But I just like how she asked for, what was it, $40 billion? And he's just like, no.
Yeah.
I'll give you $0. And thought that was a great interaction between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, digressing. Let's move then to the mall.
Sure.
Okay. Actually, you know what? Let's just get Veidt back here to Earth. So let's go to Europa. Okay, and we'll bring Veidt back, and we can start from there. So he's in jail, and he clearly has made his own escape path with his horseshoe. And as he is escaping, he gets ran into by the game warden. And the game warden and him have a conversation, and he shoots him. And there's a great callback to how the potential for superpowers in Adrian Veidt is he catches the bullet. What did you think of that?
Yeah, so this is, just like you said, it's a great callback because this is from the comics. I think he did it in the movie as well,
He does it in the movie, correct.
Yeah, he does it in the movie as well. So I thought it was really great. It's kind of a superhero trope, and I think a lot of people attribute it to Superman, the original movie, where he catches the bullet, of course. So I thought it was a great callback scene here. I do not think it necessarily is showing that he has superpowers per se. I think even in the original, people correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think in the original comic or in the movie it's saying that he has the ability to do that because he has superpowers. It's more about misdirection and things of that nature. So
now, I would say I agree with you. I don't think it explicitly says he's super fast. In the movie, though, it makes you believe that he's a super fast person.
During the end fight in the movie, he has some crazy moves.
In the beginning fight, too, where he kills the comedian.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And the fact that he does catch a bullet. I mean, let's be fair. He does catch a bullet here.
Yeah.
So you have to be pretty quick to do that. I'm just curious if the fact, because it's in Europa, it's technically a made-up world. Like, who knows by what laws of physics they're actually playing. Like, I think the question really is, could they actually kill Adrian Veidt if they wanted to? I think that's a question that we don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go ahead and assume they cannot.
Yeah, and I think this is all kind of orchestrated, right? Because after he does kill Phillips,
right,
as he's dying, as he's holding the
Game
we
warden.
assumed it was Adam. Yeah, the game warden
Right.
version of Phillips. He even asks he asks Veidt if he played his part well.
If he's a worthy opponent.
If he's a worthy opponent, yeah, exactly. He just no.
Veidt goes no.
Yeah.
Which was great because they have the conversation too about masks.
Yes.
And about how his true nature can't come out without the mask on, and how it allows people to be themselves. And I like how the Adam or the Phillips of the group, right? He thanks him for that, and he says, "That's why I'm wearing the mask," essentially. And then he asks if he's worthy. He says no, and he just dies. Mm-hmm. And then I like how all the other ones are lined up to say bye to him.
Yeah,
and I thought that was great because it is just so funny how I thought that was probably, and I'm not the only one, the most entertaining or interesting parts of this series were clearly Adrian Veidt's scenes.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I would agree. I mean, overall, it was always the most bizarre.
It's like the most Lost rendition. It's like I felt like I was watching Lost again every time that he was on the screen when he was in Europa.
Sure. I agree. Just because of how it seemingly disconnected. We've talked about this before too. So disconnected on its surface from everything else that we see throughout this series. Yet somehow it works. Right. And that to me was one of the best parts about this episode, and part of why I think it was successful is because it did tie that back very well. I thought, like, all these random bizarre happenings with Veidt, we slowly learn a bit more, and then by this final episode, he's a huge presence. He's a major part of this conclusion. So I thought that was great. That's one of the things in our very first episode on this podcast. I'm like, I want to see more about Veidt. I want to see more about Dr. Manhattan. And they deliver on that, while I still think servicing the new characters and making sure that we learn their story. Well, at least with Angela, learn her story as well. Yeah. So it was great. I really enjoyed that part about it.
So he gets on the spaceship, and they have him stand still with his hands on his hips, just like which I thought was great.
Like his pose.
And then they basically give him the Mandalorian treatment where they carbonite him. You know what I mean? Like, they basically froze him in carbonite.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you when they're doing this is, when we saw the statue of Veidt earlier, was that him?
Yeah.
So we're supposed to believe that she brought him back and kept him there. And we don't really know how long she's had the statue of her father. Is that correct?
Well, we do, actually. So, at least this is my theory. It's in the episode with the eggs, and she goes to the farm. That, depending on where that lines up timeline-wise, that should be Veidt that's impacting, where she says, that's mine. And then she goes to...
Perfect callback. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so awesome. that is when Veidt makes impact, presumably, and then she's had him ever since that. So
awesome recall.
Yeah.
What was it, like episode 3 or 4?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he has literally been in that statue for a long time. I thought that was great. She basically only brings him out of hiding when she's ready to conquer the world, essentially.
Yeah, and then that perfectly calls back to, well, if you were about to achieve what I'm paraphrasing here, what I'm about to achieve, wouldn't you want your father and mother to be there? Or whatever the case may be. So that's why she waits till that moment to bring him back.
I also would say, like I said, my favorite part of this entire episode has to be Veidt's interaction with Laurie Blake when she's looking at him upside down and she's just like, Adrian?
Yeah.
And he's like, but I kind of also think it would have just been fantastic had we just never saw him again. Had she just coated him in gold statue, and that's who he was, and that's how she gets him. Because there's got to be a part to her that obviously wants her father to see it, but also a part that's like, F you didn't help me. I'm smarter than you. I'm better than you. The student takes out the master type of thing, right? The teacher. There's got to be a part that she believes that she's better than him.
Oh, I 100% think she does. I think that is the only reason why she brings him back.
Correct.
Like with Beyond as a clone, it seems like she maybe is trying to have an actual relationship there. Whereas with Veidt, I don't think she's trying to, form a relationship with her father. I think she's trying to be like, hey, yeah, you told me to do this, and now look at me. I did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of throw it in his face a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of funny, though, too, that she is his child. Just, I don't know. It's an entire show about race. And the fact that, like, there doesn't, clearly the actress who plays Lady Shrew is Asian, but, like, there's no combination of, like, Adrian Veidt look. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I know what we're going with, but it's like, it's a complete show about there's no interracial relationships in the show. This is I think the only interracial relationship was the mother stealing the sperm and injecting herself with it. That's as close as we got to any type of interracial coupling. And the fact that this was the only interracial couple that creates Lady True, there's not a lot of mixed bag there, right? She doesn't look like she has two different ethnicities as parents.
Sure. Oh, I get what you're saying. And we do have, don't forget, flashbacks with Will Reeves and was it Captain?
Yes.
So I'm just saying they are technically in a relationship there.
That's right. The double taboo relationship.
Yes, exactly. But outside of that, I get your point.
Yeah.
I believe you are correct. But yeah, that is what it is. I think also that it does a good job of, in this final reveal, leading you up to that point where you can't anticipate necessarily that that's going to be a part of the plot.
So let's take this then. So we go to the mall, and inside the mall, Laurie Blake is still prisoner, and they're setting her up to essentially watch what happens, right?
Yeah.
And she basically they explain that one, the one guy gets a call on the phone or the walkie-talkie that they're having problems, and he runs away and says, Looking Glass comes up behind with a shotgun, says, don't look at me, don't look at me. She turns and looks at him. He's like, don't look at me. So theory was correct. He's under the hood.
Mirror guy?
He's that mirror guy.
Looking Glass.
Yeah. So we know he's there. That's good. And they basically tell him that they're bringing Dr. Manhattan here. But why this is happening, the rest of the Cyclops group or 7th Cavalry are all coming and filtering into the church to watch this. And all of a sudden, Dr. Manhattan shows up, and Laurie Blake's reaction is great. Like I said, this is I think what I wanted more.
Okay.
My favorite parts of the show are the nostalgic parts too. I don't have a connection to the comic book. My connection is to the movie, which I really enjoy the movie, as much as that can be blasphemy from a lot of people. And I thought the movie was really good. Really enjoy it. So Laurie Blake, Dr. Manhattan, I love the Adrian Veidt, Laurie Blake connection here. I was so hoping for, a comedian stand-in, kind of like Red Scare, but really kind of just, I would love for Jeffrey Dean Morgan to have somehow been in this movie as the comedian. Like, it would have just been great to see him in a flashback. Even. Yeah. But she's in there. She sees him. They start to have this conversation. She's starting, Joe Keene's there, right? And his father, the senator's there, and all the white class group of people. And he starts to kind of give a rallying speech of how he set this all up. Now, I still had a question. Was Judd Crawford in this on the beginning?
I read this now as yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact that they did not go back to readdress that, I think it's our intention to understand that, yes, he absolutely was involved in this, and that he wasn't, innocently caught up in the series of events. I think he was very much involved.
I still read it as his wife was 100% caught up in it.
Okay.
But that he was almost like being dragged across the finish line. It's just such a weird situation for him for that many years to been so close to Angela, if he's got the racial proclivities that he does to be such a racist.
Yeah. Well, and here's actually what I did not like about this episode, which ties in perfectly with this, is we get to the mustache twirling at this moment. Right? With Keene. And even later with True.
Right.
And the fact that from the outset they kind of made a point to set the expectation that they don't like to use the term good guys and bad guys.
Right.
That everyone kind of operates in a shade of gray. That is not the case here. And that's fine. We clearly have very evil, despicable people here with Keene, and then later with True's plan, honestly, as well, right? Horrible things that these people are willing to do and that they have done. But then I don't know. Once again, we've talked about nuance a lot as well, right? So it kind of pushes that to the side to give you a concrete villain that we can root against that needs to be defeated. But then it makes all of those previous interactions with people like Judd, in my mind, suddenly concretely like, oh, no, yeah, okay, he's a bad guy. Like, that's how I now read those scenes, is that he was trying to be nice because he was, I don't know, kind of going, not undercover, but you know what I mean. He was trying to make it seem like he was being nice when in fact he was actually a 7th Cavalry member.
Yeah. So I actually find it odd, though, that he just brushes away the 7th Cavalry as not really the main arc villain.
Yeah,
like, that's what I thought.
Okay,
I thought this was a show
gotcha.
that's entirely based on the Cyclops and the 7th Cavalry and this racial tension. And they're clearly there. They're there to do their heinous act. They just get outsmarted by the Asian lady. essentially, right? For racial terms here, this Lady True comes in and just absolutely decimates them, and it's kind of, some of these things are kind of the stereotypical versions of certain things, right? Like Lady True's the smartest person in the room, right? The 7th Cavalry, not really the smartest people. They're kind of a lot of backcountry people. Okay, they just happen to be positions of power. The fact that they wash those guys, literally wash them away, and as Joe King gets blown up in the whatever the chamber he goes into is, it really just erased those guys. And all of a sudden erased the racial tension as the main component of the entire series. I had a problem with that. We built up this entire show from the Black Wall Street Massacre forward, and all of a sudden the racial part goes away because all of a sudden it's who's going to be God, and who's the smartest person in the room, and who wants the power. And now all of a sudden Joe King doesn't matter. I mean, so even if this goes forward another season, is the 7th Cavalry just dead? I mean, I saw Game of Thrones where the entire Dothraki ran across the field and got killed, but it turned out there was like 100,000 of them still chilling at the castle like a week later. So like I understand that they can't. I get your point. I understand you can't destroy the 7th Cavalry or the White Power conspiracy or whatever it is, right? This overarching threat. But the reality is the 7th Cavalry exists as in a trailer park. Did we eliminate all of them? That's a question I have. Okay. Because it looks like we eliminated clearly the entire top brass, including some of the sitting members of the U.S. Senate.
Right. Well, and I think it's very, just like your point with the Dothraki, actually. If they want to bring them back, they could, I think, very easily do that. Because even though, sure, you've gotten rid of the top members of leadership, that's certainly a plot thread. They could still pick back up with someone who's wanting to follow in Keen's footsteps or something like that. So if they're wanting to, in a new series, if we get a new season, if they're wanting to still keep certain villains the same and certain heroes the same and complete those threads throughout, there's definitely groundwork there for them to do it.
Okay. What do you think about... so during this time, Angela shows up. She has a gun. She's trying to tell, Senator Keen nice underwear as he's wearing the classic Dr. Manhattan underwear from the movie and the comic book.
That's right.
And she's telling him, like, I'm here to help you. Almost as a way of saying, like, let's put our differences aside here. You're not the real villain here. Like, you're being used. Like, our war is set up, like, we're forced, like, we were pushed to do this, essentially. Like, Lady True is the main villain. Let's almost unite against her. Did you get that theme?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Not to say she wouldn't, like, drill him in the back later.
Right. I mean, I think that Angela definitely gets the big picture here, that she knows the truth about True, and that she needs as much help in that moment as she can get. So, yeah, I understand her wanting to warn everybody and try to advise them that this is the bigger picture, this is the bigger problem that needs to be immediately addressed. But yeah, still, if things had gone differently, how do you think it would have ended? If they'd somehow believed her, stopped True together, does Keen keep on going, trying to... I mean, I'm assuming yes, right?
I would think so, too. I mean... It would be a weird ending for a show about racial tension that this has brought to the forefront, right? I don't think it works. I think you have to have the overarching villain for it to be a Watchmen type thing, because essentially she's kind of a comic book hero, villain stand-in. Joe Keen's not. Joe Keen's just a guy that's like the head of the mob at the beginning of any superhero movie that gets taken out first, right? He's not the Joker. He's the other guy that thought he planned the robbery.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Dark Knight,
exactly.
Right? He's the guy that thought he was the one in charge, and he's not. Yeah. What do you think about the way they take out Dr. Manhattan?
Before that,
sure sorry.
Okay.
Let's say sure. So True shows up. True basically admits that, they essentially transport everybody out of the location that they were, basically back to the city.
Yeah.
And she shows up. She basically announces her master plan and wipes out the White Cavalry, which I thought Judd Crawford's wife here was great. Just go ahead and do it. And she does it. She just laser beams them and they all just disappear, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk Dr. Manhattan here.
Sure.
So what do you think about the way they take him out?
Yeah, if they're going to take out Dr. Manhattan, I'm not sure of any other way they really could have done this, because there is so much precedent surrounding his abilities and just how omniscient, omnipotent, how powerful that he is. So this worked as well as it could, I guess, is my stance on it. They use kind of made up science to explain why his powers are contained, and then subsequently how the Millennium Clock is able to activate and kind of drain him of those powers. Like, I was on board with that, I guess. The reason why is because I could not offer anything as a counterpoint. If you are committed as a showrunner and as a writer that you know you want Dr. Manhattan to die by the end of your series, how are you going to do that? And I think that this is really one of the only ways that they could do it, because any kind of conventional means clearly would not have worked, right?
Do you actually think he's dead?
Yeah, I do, actually.
You don't think we would see, if they do come back with a season 2, you don't think Dr. Manhattan shows up?
I think that at this point, if they continue forward with the season 2, and that if they want Dr. Manhattan or someone like Dr. Manhattan to have a presence, they will have made Angela consuming the egg to be, in fact, what gives her powers. I think up to this point, it's set that up in such a way that if they didn't then pursue that in a season 2, if they want to have someone with Manhattan's powers, I think then they would be doing a disservice to Angela's character if she was not the person who had that. If they are going to choose not to include Manhattan at all in future seasons, then this would still work perfectly. You'd have her falling into the pool, essentially, right? At that particular moment.
Which would be great.
And then you'd have a series without Dr. Manhattan in it. You could focus maybe more on the actual, kind of street-to-street crime fighting of vigilantes and why the FBI may or may not be wanting to chase after them. Because now that the Keens are both dead, that maybe we can call into question their initiatives put in place regarding masks as well. So we don't know what the repercussions are going to be from, the consequences of the series finale.
Okay.
But how about you?
Well, I don't know. Knowing Damon Lindelof's work, as I've watched it before and some of the things, I don't believe for a second that the Dr. Manhattan's gone. Okay. Like, we're going to see, if the show continues, I fully believe we're going to see a Dr. Manhattan again. Because I essentially think that, I don't believe for a second that thing took him out. That thing could have even contained him. I say that because he was able to obviously get the blood, which I know was underneath the machine, essentially underneath the jail cell. But I don't, just like he's everywhere at every time. I can't have a hard time thinking he couldn't have seen this. And so I don't believe that he doesn't have some form of a plan to have gotten out of this. Like whether we see him next season, I don't know. But I believe at some point there will be some kind of a note, some kind of an interaction where, he's not just an egg in a carton, that he is essentially, whether he's back in Europa, which I wouldn't be shocked because that would be great. You don't want to just lose Crookshanks and Phillips, right? If your series is done, you are going to continue. You don't want to lose that because I think that's actually a really fantastic setting, and those are great characters. And I would like to have seen maybe what would happen if Dr. Manhattan went back there, and how Dr. Manhattan's interaction with them would be.
Okay, here's what confuses me. If they were to keep him alive, future forward. Is that because you're absolutely right. He has the ability to be kind of anywhere and everywhere in time simultaneously. So he doesn't even have to teleport there, see what's going on, and then teleport back as a single body. We've established the fact he can kind of be everywhere at once, in a way. So why does he let this happen? Right? Like he knows that there's a moment when, especially when he has the inhibitor in, and presumably, quite possibly when he's in the cage, that's messing with him. Right? He doesn't fully understand where he is or when he is at certain moments throughout this, right? So,
but he still has his power because he's still able to relive everything.
He does. So that's why I think that if he knows something terrible is going to happen, this is already very concrete. He knows that this is going to end tragically. And I think Dr. Manhattan knows that when he says that kind of vaguely to Angela, that he knows he himself will die. So he allows that to happen. Why? When you can alter any series of events. And I think why is because he wants the egg to transfer the powers. That's the only conclusion I can reach as to why he would not alter events to have him not be captured and go through all this craziness.
So what they messed up in letting Angela eat the egg then. They should have let Topher eat the egg.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Because I think the kid who we likened, at least I likened to Dr. Manhattan earlier in the series, especially when he's building the castle that's floating.
Yes.
Just how his kind of mannerism is. He's very logical. He's not very empathetic because of what he's gone through. I thought it'd been great had she cooked the egg for him, not knowing it's the only egg that's left, and he eats the egg. That would be a kind of a great twist.
That would have been a very good twist.
Because the next season could be that they're dealing with him as he's developing these Dr. Manhattan-like powers, or he has these, he doesn't know what he's doing with it. And maybe that's kind of the next series is like, okay, we need to stop this kid, before he realizes what he is able to do.
Interesting.
Or harness it, and it's, I don't know. That's me. Damon Lindelof, go ahead and contact me. I'll join the cast.
Get you on the writing team or something.
I'll go ahead. I'll fill in. It's bench writer. But let's go back to Veidt. So, Dr. Manhattan, Looking Glass, Veidt, and Laurie Blake. Well, before this happens, I want to talk about the Veidt-Laurie Blake interaction. Like, again, my favorite part of the show was their interaction. And, are you dead? And, I'm not dead. And, it just... Veidt's interactions with humans, again, are just fantastic because his interaction with the newspaper guy, where he says, you look like Adrian Veidt, you look like that guy, but nobody really cares anymore because it's 10 years ago. Like, whatever, he's old news. He's been with these clones for so long to actually see him interact with human beings again. It's just, Jeremy Irons is probably the best part of the show as an actor. Laurie Blake, I think, still maintains the best character. But I don't know. I was just nostalgic for that interaction. What do you think?
I thought it was funny. I thought it was great. It was. The scene where they get teleported to, Veidt's base or, whatever the case may be. I thought that whole sequence was great as well. Seeing those two actors just kind of paired together, it was really great. So definitely, like you said, it was kind of that nostalgia. Definitely a great callback to their interaction kind of in the original comics.
And I love that when they go to his base, and I know people are probably mad that we don't know the name of the base by now that we referenced it like 30 times, that Looking Glass now is actually in the genesis of what his biggest fear is.
Yes.
And
that was excellent as well.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I thought he was saying that I could create this. This is randomized. He can definitely sneak it in and pick where he drops it. And if we drop the temperature, we can freeze it. And just because it's like a Gatling gun, shooting down on him.
Yeah, yeah. I love that line.
Yes.
Yes.
And basically they turn it on everybody on the street. And this is what it's great too, because it kind of goes back to his squid monster.
Absolutely.
I'm going to kill whoever I can to save the day. And I'm saving the day again, so you all owe me again, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He views it just so simply that here is the problem. I have a solution to the problem, so I'm going to use that solution. Like, he doesn't factor in the collateral damage of it.
It's Karnak, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. What I also loved about the fact that Looking Glass was there, and I find this really interesting, is because they also then had to weigh the consequences of this. I'm sure for Laurie as a character, this would be a callback to her original interaction at the end of the comic book and the movie.
Yes.
Where she has to kind of come to grips with what Veidt has done.
Yes, and she knows. And they reference that too.
Yes.
That Looking Glass says, you've known about this.
Yes. And now, though, while on a much smaller scale, Laurie and Looking Glass are still party to a vast amount of damage to probably a lot of innocent people.
Yes.
And so they also have to...
And a lot of cops.
And a lot of cops as well.
Mean, a lot of those
Wade
people
has to know that he's...
Yes.
That he's going to be harming them. And then it's also Wade who... I get that he's not the one to literally push the button, but you had mentioned kind of at the epicenter of what caused his fear. Like, he's the one adjusting the temperature down.
Yes.
And now he's still at the point where his fear is coming to the realization now, I think, that it's not harmless anymore. So now this specific squidfall actually will be very harmful to people.
He's the one that weaponizes it.
Yes.
He's the one that takes it from something where Veidt says these were engineered to never be harmful.
Exactly.
And basically, Looking Glass is the one who makes it deadly.
Yes.
Thought that was great.
So,
Great point out there.
That was an interesting moment for his character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome, though, interaction because we do see Archimedes.
Yes.
And Laurie Blake calls it Archie. And she turns around and she's going to now arrest Veidt. The Veidt can't stay at Karnak. That Veidt is going to come back and go to jail. And he goes, go to jail for what? And she goes, you killed 3 million people. He's like, but you knew about it, And I like how she's like, well, tough. Got over it, So we changed. Everybody changes. Everybody but Veidt changes.
Everybody but Veidt changes,
And Looking Glass at this time, after he gives an impassioned speech, Looking Glass knocks him in the back of the head. Him being Veidt and knocks him out.
Yeah.
So we know he's carted off to jail.
This guy talks too much.
Yes. I'm curious. I think it would be super funny. I like how he goes from one prison to another, right? Which is an interesting symbolism here. I'm really curious if we do a season 2, if somehow the characters of Phillips and Crookshanks get to Earth. Don't know how they would do this. And yet they somehow still try to break him out of jail. Like that's the kind of writing I would like to see. I want to see that. I wish Topher got the egg.
Sure.
I wish these guys would come back to somehow get to Earth and interact, to save their guy, right? That Veight's their guy.
Yeah.
And break him out and horseshoe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's totally plausible for them to do that because now we know that now how you connect the dots to this, I'm not quite sure about that yet. But very clearly there is a spaceship that can get to Jupiter and get people back to Earth alive. So the precedent is technically there for there to be future interactions. I also can almost guarantee you if we do get a season 2, we're going to see Dan again, and quite possibly at the same place where Veidt would be taken to as well.
Awesome.
Which would be fantastic.
Awesome.
So I do hope that happens if we get a season 2.
I want the old stuff. I want the old characters in here. I think it would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do. I don't know what other villains exist in the Watchmen world, so I don't know that. That's my ignorance because I'm not well versed in the Watchmen world.
Sure.
But I would be curious on where they would take this series.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what's so great too, because in comics, in the graphic novel and in the movie, the villains are there, but it's always about the core group, right?
Yes.
So you have their interaction, their choices. It's kind of that skewering of the classic comic book tropes, and you have these villains, but at the end of the day their greatest villains are actually themselves. That's kind of one of the themes I think that they tackle, so that could definitely be a through line here as well. And what if Angela, the options here would be endless. Angela could end up moving to New York. What if Angela ends up joining the task force with Laurie to help hunt down other vigilantes, or something along those lines? They could do so much with this.
Yeah.
That being said, I would like in future seasons for us to see Looking Glass, Sister Night, Red Scare, and Pirate Jenny kind of group up to have more screen time together. But
I agree, especially Red Scare, because we actually, even though we see them, we know that they survive.
Yes,
it wasn't enough because I didn't get great interaction with him. Did you think they were going to die when the squid started falling?
I actually didn't. I was not all that concerned for them in that moment, oddly enough. It would have felt very out of place for them to kill off characters that could come back in season 2 like them. Reason being is because we don't have that much of a connection.
Right.
So if they were to die then, it would have been completely pointless, and now you're eliminating at least pre-established characters for a future season.
Yeah.
So I was not concerned for them in that moment.
One thing I thought too is, was it Beyond? Is that her name?
Beyond, yep.
She hides in the phone booth?
Yeah.
Well, that's where Angela was. And I know that they kept saying, run, 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 it's coming. I guess I don't understand why she left the phone booth too. I know that you have to get her to the theater because she has to be able to run to her grandfather. I get the story arc that she needed to go to. I guess I just didn't understand why she runs away.
Yeah.
Because she's safe. She's safe in the phone booth. I actually thought it was great that she's safe in the Dr. Manhattan phone booth. Essentially, I thought it would be symbolic as Dr. Manhattan has basically engulfed her and is like protecting her from the squid rain. So
that'd be good too.
I don't know. I'm not saying she couldn't go to the theater 2 minutes later, but yeah.
Yeah, the fact that Beyond stayed there and it clearly saved her.
Yes.
So it's not like it was, kind of pelting through the top of the ceiling, right? So that does make it kind of weird that she would then run.
Yes.
Unless they thought that maybe it would go through the top, so they had her run it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
You
I won't
mentioned,
get hung up on
you
that
mentioned
moment,
Petey earlier.
I did.
Did you check whatever happened to Lube Man?
Yes, I did, because we don't get the answer for that in this episode, which is, it's fine. It does beg the question of why we even needed that in the first place. I guess we've been talking about it for weeks, so maybe that was the only purpose of it, right? But yes, it is not explicitly stated in terms of Petey saying, I am Lube Man, but when they're searching through, I think it's Petey's desk, because he ends up getting fired, I believe. This is all off camera.
This is all off camera.
You have to read this on Peteypedia.
So majority of people don't know what this is. So what is Peteypedia?
Yeah, so Peteypedia is kind of the companion...
it's a website, right?
Called a series. Yeah, it's based on...
HBO
HBO did it. Yeah, so it's an officially licensed, if you want to say, HBO kind of side series that's as if it was being written about events taking place within the world of the Watchmen, all right?
Okay.
So there have been various connecting pieces throughout every single episode where a PDpedia entry is written after the episode airs, or actually as the episode is airing, technically. And this last one here goes through the fact that PD has been fired, I believe, and that in his in his desk they find like the lube essentially.
Okay.
So I mean, it's PD. It has to have been PD,
Right.
and that is absolutely what they're doing on PDpedia's.
I'll just say, as a guy who like seemed like he was just cosplaying superhero, the fact that he knew he could slide through that sewer drain just as a callback, awesome.
Like, I just don't.
Still would have been funny had his head got stuck.
Yes, and it should have been, because now the fact that we've gotten through, once again, this was a series finale. It was never brought up again.
No.
It should have been a funny moment of the show where he gets stuck. Even I would have liked him to get stuck, like maybe at his waist.
Yes.
So he clearly can't escape. They pull off his mask. It's Petey. They're like, Petey, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, and then that could have been it. Like that, they wouldn't have needed to bring it up again after that.
Yeah.
But the fact that they brought it up at all and then just didn't address it, I did find it kind of strange. It seems like these companion series, this was a companion kind of diary entry essentially, are maybe becoming more commonplace. Like, to get the full picture, you have to read this companion thing to go along with the series, right? So I don't know how I feel about that, but it is what it is.
So where do you rank this? Okay, I'm gonna ask you a couple things about the show as a whole now. Okay, do you have a favorite character of the show now that it's over?
Yes, Looking Glass.
Okay,
which I'm happy to say that, because I wanted to say that episode 1.
Yes, you did.
And just knowing, well, assuming
he's a white man in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and he sets up that precedent himself. That's his line, right? So I was just really nervous about where they would take his character. But by the end of it, he seems to be a pretty good guy still. So yeah, I definitely like Looking Glass's character quite a lot. He's my favorite from this series.
Yeah, mine's Laurie Blake.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm excited. I'm excited that she's in the show. I'm excited for what they could do with her in season 2. I want more interactions with her. Like, I'm disappointed we didn't get more of like an interaction with her running into Dr. Manhattan, right? We do just get reference to the fact that they dated. Joe Keane drops that to the group of the Cyclops.
That's right, yeah.
I wish that I could see the interaction of what her and Angela will talk about with regards to Dr. Manhattan. I would think that, obviously, like we've said previously, dating him or being married to him has to be extremely hard. It would be interesting to see, like, I would love a scene of these two ladies just sitting there talking trash about Dr. Manhattan drinking wine, right? Like, basically just letting Aaron out all the, the guy doesn't do the dishes, you know what I mean? Like, he can be everywhere at one time, but he can't do the dishes, something like that.
Sure.
I thought would have been a really cool moment. I'm here for her because I like that she has changed. She's changed from when we saw her in her younger days in the movie or the comic to where she's at now. So she has great nuance. In fact, she might be one of the most nuanced characters in the show because she has such a rich history, as well as such the prospect to have such great interactions with current and past people that pop into the show. Because you have to admit, her interactions with Angela, she's not done. She still kind of wants to probably arrest Angela, right? We don't know what her interactions with Adrian will be going forward. We don't know what her interactions with Dan are. We know that she doesn't want Dan in jail, but she obviously, how does she rectify herself with chasing down people like Angela and Vite, but yet Dan is in lockup and she doesn't want him locked up, right? So there's just a lot of things I think that her character offers for nuance that, even though it's a show that I think Angela is nuanced, I don't think she has as much nuance as a character. In fact, hate to say it, I think Angela's character kind of a little black and white. There's not a lot of shades of gray with Angela. She is who she is. Laurie at least has this inner, basically struggle with, she used to be Angela and now she's Laurie Blake. And I think that that's why her character, I think, the best character in the show.
Sure.
Did you have a favorite episode?
Favorite episode? Oh, man. Favorite episode for me would honestly probably be the one that's very Looking Glass centric, just because I thought there were some really great performances that came out of that episode. Outside of that one, though, pilot.
I agree with you. I think the pilot's great.
It's what really grabbed my attention from the outset. It got me really, really excited, and kind of toward the middle episodes there, not even the middle episodes, but the episodes that immediately followed, episodes 2 and 3, for me at least. I think we have opposing viewpoints on this as well, but for me at least, I kind of started to lose interest a little bit, dare I say, after how excellent that pilot episode was. So really, outside of that Looking Glass episode, just because he was my favorite character, the pilot episode would definitely be
Yeah.
a little better.
I think some of the stronger episodes I really liked. She was killed by space junk, which was the Lori Blake
That was Lori, yeah.
interaction. I liked the Little Fear of Lightning, which is the Wade PTSD Looking Glass episode. That was great. A God Walks into A-Bar I thought was really good as well.
That was really strong. Yeah.
I don't think this finale was the strongest episode.
No, I don't
I think it was good. I think it was a good ending. I like that Lindelof, as he said, it gave it a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they can end the series now. I like that. So Twitter has always had strong responses to this show after every episode, and people have really enjoyed it. In fact, following Twitter a lot, I know that after the pilot episode, a lot of people, like us included, were not strongly aware of the Black Wall Street Massacre.
That's right.
And the Tulsa Race riots, and that people were all abuzz on Twitter about that. The show, though, has captured a lot of people's attention. And there's a lot of people that gave great fan service to the show, and they said it is the best television series on TV today. It is the best single season of television that some people have ever seen. Now, I'll go first on my thoughts.
Sure.
I think it's a lot of high praise. I don't think it's the best thing on TV. I don't think it's the best thing that HBO put out this year. I think that if you listen to any of our other podcasts on the Aliens and Cowboys, where we talk about other shows, other movies, pop culture, I think Succession season 2 is the best thing that's been on television this year. I don't think it's the best first season of television. I saw one particular person said it's better than Game of Thrones season 1, Breaking Bad season 1, Sopranos season 1, Wire season 1. I just don't agree with that. I don't even think it's better than Lost season 1.
Okay.
If anybody's a Lost fan out there, I think the Lost was such a great story, especially season 1, where it's probably its strongest. I think this show is good. I think the landing lands. I think it's a little rocky. I think it started out way better than it ended. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, what do you think?
I would agree with you in terms of that. I think that it started out very, very promising, and it has a lot of important things to say, right? I mean, I think that is why it has made such an impact amongst so many viewers, ourselves included. We learned things that we did not know prior to going into this series, and I'm not sure I was anticipating to, I guess, walk away with as much as I did from it, if that makes sense. So I think it was very important. Very glad that I watched it. For me, just personally, we all have shows that we gravitate toward. We all have things and interests and hobbies and different things that we're looking for in TV series. So for people that are saying, best first season of television ever written, I can see why they're saying that. Once again, a lot of important things that it had to say, and more or less from start to finish, it tells a coherent story and ties it up pretty nicely overall. I can totally understand where that's coming from. But for me, no, that's a little bit, I would not give it that many accolades. It's not my favorite first season of any TV series. It's honestly probably not my top 10 favorite TV series as well. It's very good.
I agree.
I just wouldn't maybe have it ranked quite as high as some other people have as well.
No, I agree with you. I think it's strong. I think it beat my expectations of what I thought the show would be. So I think it's better than what I thought it would be.
Okay, yeah.
Even if it's an individual season and I ranked it amongst other individual or short series, it might not be even the best of that. So it's strong, it's good. I just think that people blew it out of proportion. I think because of the themes that it deals with, it's very in to say that this is the best show on television.
Yeah,
it's very artsy to be a huge fan of the show, and to try to sing that it's the best praise of anything that's out there. And I just don't, like I said, I just don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I think there is something to be said, and this is something that I give props to the show for. And once again, on Aliens and Cowboys, as you mentioned, Garret, we do have this conversation quite frequently. I've been a big proponent of having series that are more like this in terms of creating a beginning, a middle, and an end, and more or less tying things up without feeling the need to project these huge overarching storylines that would take 6, 7, 8 seasons to try to resolve. So the fact that this did set out to tell a self-contained story and deliver on that overall, I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I respect Lindelof, and not just Lindelof, all of the actors, the writers, producers, everybody that collaborated on this project. I think that was really pretty bold of them to do that, to just, even as of this recording, we don't know if we're getting a season 2, because at this moment they've told the story that they wanted to tell. And I like that a lot about it. I'm glad that they took that approach to it overall.
If this goes to a season 2,
Yeah.
what are your expectations going to be for this show?
Yeah, so kind of like we alluded to, I'd love to see some interaction with Veidt and with Dan. I want to see some of the original core people brought back together again. I think they did that in a pretty great way. This season finale here, I'd love to see them continue that through. Definitely, however, I want to see more of the interaction with vigilantes. That's probably number one thing for me. They have some really interesting characters, some of which we get to know about, some of which we know nothing about. Especially Red Scare. Yeah, sure, he's kind of over the top and provides some kind of dark humor throughout this series, but we don't know anything about him.
Right.
And I think that's a great story to tell right there. Why is a Russian vigilante over here stateside collaborating with the Tulsa PD?
Yes.
Little things like that. Does it make an impact on this story we told this series? No.
Also, you have the room for Pirate Jenny to be a strong female character.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, she seems, that she can handle herself. There's a story there. Be nice to talk about that,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you brought this up. I think I don't remember what episode you brought this up in, as this becoming an anthology series.
Yeah.
And that maybe season 2 can pick a completely different area of the country to go to where there's other vigilantes, and then it can start from scratch.
Exactly.
You can create new vigilantes that aren't attached to any of Alan Moore's work, that aren't attached to the Watchmen universe. You can still have it exist in the same world. If you want to cross somebody over, great. But the reality would be that you can create a whole new set of vigilantes however you want, a story however you want, and move forward from there.
Exactly. And I'd love to see that aspect of it as well. When I had referenced there, and yes, Pirate Jenny, Red Scare, Looking Glass, Sister Night, it'd be great to see those characters explored more. But just in general, a group of masked vigilantes again. I would love to see the focus hone in on that. Take the extra super heroic elements out. By that I mean Dr. Manhattan, right? The fact that you had this godlike creature that may or may not still have some kind of presence, right?
Right.
Up for debate. But still have the primary focus be on that boots on the ground vigilante. And then, yeah, absolutely, still tie it in. It would be a shame that if you set this up where if we decide that Angela or Lindelof decides that Angela is going to inherit Dr. Manhattan's powers, it would kind of be a shame not to explore that at least a little bit. So give us a little bit of those crossovers, like you're saying.
Right.
But yeah, I'd love to see it set up a little bit differently, where we get more the vigilante side of things, I guess, like and focus on the group of them actually fighting crime.
I think that would be the most entertaining. What if they did a anthology and they did a retrospective where they go back to Hooded Justice's group?
Oh.
And they do a younger version of these same characters. You basically do the Hooded Justice story now. The entire series would be based on his, you could do his origin story in the first episode, how he survives the lynching, he puts on the mask, he saves the robbery, how he gets in with Captain Metropolis, and how he works his way up. And I think that would be a really fascinating story. And you can even have Dr. Manhattan, or a stand-in for Dr. Manhattan, come in and out of it to, just to kind of be there as far as showing these everywhere at every time. I think that would be interesting too, because if you want to stick with the racial component,
sure,
which has been the backbone of the show, at least really for the first seven episodes of it, I don't know where you're going to take it. Not to say that racism all of a sudden got defeated with the death of the Cyclops, like not by all means, no. And that's my criticism of the show, is I honestly felt like they kind of kicked the racism part to the curb. They kind of just pushed it away for, like you said, the mustache trailing bad guy, or bad woman, essentially. And I think that I don't know. I guess if you want the racial component to be a part of it, you got to move it somewhere else. And I know that racism exists all over the world, all over the United States. I mean, but I think you got to take it back in the past, and then I think it would be interesting to see. Really, the whole Hooded Justice story would be good.
That would be really interesting. I like that idea. They could almost do not have it set as the actual story within a story of American hero story.
Right.
But yeah, kind of go back and tell the story of the original Minutemen group. I like that idea, man.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting to see that.
Go give us the actual movie version. Give me the comedian. Give me Rorschach. Like I think that's such a rich character too, that I know that we gave him a stand-in with Looking Glass, but I mean, would you rather have Looking Glass or would you rather have Rorschach? I kind of rather have Rorschach.
Okay, I was gonna say at this point, actually, Looking Glass won me over, at least in between those two, and I think it's because Looking Glass has such a how do I say this? He's a lot less radical than Rorschach, right? And I think that with Alan Moore, and I shouldn't even try to interpret what Alan Moore's thoughts were. He's notorious of
just do it.
Hating any interpretation outside of the original graphic novel. But I think with Rorschach, especially with Rorschach, it was a commentary on how we view superheroes. And once again, it's that aspect of how far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to push things and still be able to root for that person? And I think Rorschach embodies that kind of radicalized vigilante that ostensibly is on the surface doing the right thing, fighting crime, but there are these very dark elements too.
Yeah, but not just him, but Veidt does it.
Absolutely.
And Veidt does it, and I want to say that even Dr. Manhattan does it. The comedian surely did it. Like that's the thing about the older characters versus the newer characters is the older characters have so much more nuance to them. And I get, like, you're not going to make Regina King, like, for all intents and purposes, Regina King's the main character of the show. But like I said, she's not Shades of Grey. There's not really anything that she did where I'm like, that's kind of questionable. I mean, yeah, she takes a guy into the bathroom and beats the crap out of him. Okay, like, but that's not like I'm going to kill 3 million people to save 1 billion people.
Yeah, it's not on that same level by any means. Well, I think that's, to back up to Rorschach, that's kind of why his character is so interesting, because you have people, Veidt is the perfect example, comedian is also a perfect example. Those people have done horrible, horrible things. And we understand that, and we know to question, like, yeah, they maybe were fighting bad guys, but they're also horrible people as well. Whereas Rorschach, I think he gets twisted into still being a very heroic person a lot of the time. Like, kind of popular perception of him was that, oh yeah, he's a vigilante, he's a good guy, he's going out and fighting bad guys. Whereas I think the original interpretation of him was supposed to be like, yeah, he's fighting bad guys, but he's very radical in how he's going about doing it. And like, how far is too far? Right. Yeah, these kind of questions. Whereas then, to circle back to your original question, Garret, sorry, with Looking Glass, he's not that radical. He's dealing with his own PTSD of, being there when the giant squid hit, right? So he just has a very different outlook than Rorschach did.
Yeah.
It's a very different type of vigilante style that he has.
Okay.
So, yep.
Before we put this first season to bed, or series to bed, so I guess when we sign off tonight, we're going to either sign off with see you next year, or sign off with catch you later. Let's go back to the theater. So Angela makes it to the theater to talk to her. She finds her kids.
Yes.
And her grandfather. And she tells the story of how, Dr. Manhattan came to him, basically telling him at the same time that all these other events were taking place. Told him about the eggs, told him about the omelet. But then that's all nice and fun. And she invites him to live at his house, right? Or stay at his house for a couple nights.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask more about his commentary on the mask, and about how when she was living his life and she puts on the mask, and it's the anger and the fear, and that you have to take off the mask to heal. Just what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah, I think overall to have this be, I think it's the final really conversation that takes place in the show.
It is.
It was a perfect moment for that to happen. Not only is it in the theater where everything started, right? It's in the theater where he's inspired to take Bass Reeves' surname, I guess, as his last name. It kind of puts a bow on the concepts and the themes that we've been running with, in terms of masks anyway, up to this point. So I really like this action. It was a good moment for Angela and Will to really come together and maybe, just maybe, have some semblance of an actual family, to kind of reconnect with her grandfather. So I really liked this scene. I thought it was a good, poignant way to end the show.
Do you feel like, as a kind of with Willow Reeves, that we never really got a satisfactory answer to what he was doing with Lady True?
I would agree with that. Yes.
From the last time we saw them together, he says he's got 2 good legs, and he walks away from her. And there was really another interaction. And all we heard him say was, I don't want to tell her because she's not ready to know yet.
Right. I think there is a moment in there where he's briefly mentioning, there's a lot going on in this episode, of course, but where he briefly mentioned that is what the conversation with Manhattan was. 10 years
Yes.
prior to the events of this?
Yes.
The conclusion of this here? Yeah, so that initial conversation that Will is not working for True.
Right.
That Will has kind of infiltrated her organization, essentially, so that he is there to maybe help control how things, I don't know. Once again, do they explicitly inform us how this happens? No.
Right.
Do we think that Will is a bad guy truly in league with True? Also, no. I do not get the impression he was actually trying to help True achieve her goals.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. Any final thoughts on the show?
not any more than I think what I've already said. Just to reiterate, I think overall, start to finish, very entertaining, really great social commentary, overall very powerful message, I think, by the end of this year in the finale, and really enjoyable. I'm kind of on the fence, I guess. I'd be good with the season 2 as a standalone. It worked really well.
I agree with you. I would be okay if they ended it. I would be interested to see where they take it. 2 last questions regarding the show. Sure. Is it better than Mandalorian?
Well, I am incredibly biased, just to let all of you listeners know before I answer this. But for me, no.
Okay.
The Mandalorian, as we've covered a little bit on Aliens and Cowboys, is a show or a type of show I've been waiting 20 years for. Okay. So,
what grade would you give this season?
What grade would I give this season?
Give it a letter grade.
Oh gosh, letter grade.
You can give pluses or minuses. If
I was
going to
say, can I give a plus or a minus? Because that would change how I probably answer this. So let's go with a B plus.
I agree with you. I don't think it's an A show, and I only say that because I do think there's a lot of criticism that I at least for me, that I had at least towards the ending, and I think it's how they dealt with the villains of the show. I thought everything else of it was extremely strong. The villains really just took it down a little bit of a notch at the end. And the fact that honestly I don't know where the show's going. And we still don't know.
It's true.
As an audience member, I'm trying to because I think that matters. I think if I'm looking at the show as a 1-season show, I think that I know that, then that's fine. And I can reinterpret it and say, okay, now it's an A. But if I think it's a part of a bigger work, it's just a piece of a larger scale work, then I need to take it for what it is. So I don't know. It's confusing and frustrating that as an audience member, we don't know where the future of it hangs. And I don't know if that's because Lindelof won't be a part of it, which I'm okay with. I think he did great, but I think other people can step in and still take it.
Yeah, I agree. And I wish they would give a more definitive answer at this point. I get that maybe even it could be coming from higher up, from executives at HBO trying to say, well, don't confirm or deny anything that might happen. But I don't know if anyone's just come out and said yet. Maybe they have. Let us know in the comments. Where, as of right now, no, there is not a season 2. If that were to happen, cool. But as of this time, there are no conversations for that, and this is a standalone series. I'm not sure that's been explicitly stated like that yet.
Right, no.
Which I would be okay with. Just let me know that. No plans. Hope you enjoyed season 1. It was a lot of fun making it. Whatever statement they want to make.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, we'll see.
Okay.
We will see.
Well, Joe and I do want to thank you guys for joining us on this journey of season
absolutely.
1 of The Watchmen, or of the entire series of The Watchmen. Again, we don't know. If you guys do like what you hear, you guys want to follow us, again, every week we do another podcast called Aliens and Cowboys Podcast, where we talk about movies, television series. We just talk about pop culture. We do some debates. This upcoming Wednesday, we're going to do an episode on the retrospective look at the past decade. So Joe, myself, a couple other buddies are going to get together, and we're going to pick our favorite movie of 2009, 2010, 2011, and work our way up. And we're going to discuss best actor of the decade, best actress of the decade, best movie of the decade, why Marvel is the best franchise of the decade, right, essentially. And we're just going to have a discussion of what the last 10 years of movies meant to us and what we really enjoyed. And so that's going to be this Wednesday. After that, we'll probably actually take a small hiatus for a few weeks and probably not come back till around February, if not the end of January. So we really enjoyed you guys, listening with us. If they do a season 2, we're definitely going to be back for that next year. Go out there, give us a review, leave us a rating. Again, if you want to email us comments, questions, concerns, if you want to hear us talk about a certain topic, you can reach us at aliensandcowboys@gmail.com. If you want to tweet at us or send us something, we're on Twitter at alienandcowboy. Other than that, again, catch us Wednesday, Aliens and Cowboys podcast. We really enjoy what we do, and we hope you guys see us. I hope to see you guys next year. Again, don't really know how to sign off this episode because we don't know where we're going to be.
It's just in limbo right now.
So
man.
we'll basically say, take off the mask. If we see you next year, we'll see you next year. If not, catch us Wednesday and every Wednesday after that. So thanks for being with us, and I guess that's it. Cheers.
Cheers.